Eddie, firstly, can we just start by checking on the players who've had injuries, and Bruno Guimaraes, who came back from international duty. How is he?
Yeah, Bruno's trained with us. Had a couple of difficult calls during the international break to say players had various things had happened to various players. So we were concerned for Bruno, but he's come back and the scan was good. So he's trained and he's trained well. Obviously, it's slightly disruptive for him because these 2 weeks were really important in terms of his training and getting his match sharpness back, but he's physically fine.
And will he be in your squad for Fulham?
Yeah, he's in the squad.
Alexander Isak, another player who had to withdraw from international duty. What's the situation with him?
Yeah, he picked up an injury training with Sweden. So he's come back. The scan doesn't look too bad, so we're not overly concerned that it's a long injury. But with any muscle injury, there's always a slight period where you have to be careful. But he's out running on grass, so he's looking good at the moment.
And where is Alan Saint-Maximin in his recovery from the hamstring injury he's had?
Yeah, he's doing well. He's had a period away. He's come back and he's close, very close. It's whether it's how we view things. There's a lot of moving parts with us at the moment. So I am being vague, but I'm being vague because there's a lot of player situations that are slightly unclear as we go into the game. Alan will be one of them. I'll know more after today.
Has everyone else who's been away come back okay, as far as you're aware?
Well, there's Chris Wood came off with a rib problem, so he took a knock in the game. Again, that's another player we make a very late decision on.
The club announced this morning, Friday morning, that they had agreed a deal for the 18-year-old Australian player Garang Kuol, who'll join in January. Can you tell us how excited you are by him?
Yeah, I'm very excited. I mean, he's a young player of huge potential. I think it's a show really from the club and myself where we want to go in terms of signing young players and trying to develop them in our system for them to be Premier League players in the future. So he's had a dramatic rise and he's in a position that obviously excites everybody, but there needs to be some patience shown. He's Touchwood will look after him. He'll go out on loan. He'll learn and develop behind the scenes, and then hopefully when he comes here he can play a part in our future.
What was this situation with Sven Botman during the international break? Because I think he didn't go away with the Dutch under-21 squad, with the suggestion being that he wanted to focus on training with you at Newcastle.
Yeah, I think everything gets blown out of all proportion. I think Sven was keen to continue his learning and development here in terms of adjusting to the Premier League. I think he's done that really well. But certainly from the 2 weeks he's had with us, he's trained excellently, and I think it's really benefited him. So yeah, we were pleased to keep him because you have that control over what they're doing when they're here.
You've changed your central defenders a few times this season, and Botman, I think, has started 4 of the 7 Premier League matches. When he hasn't been in the team, how pleased have you been with the way that he has taken that news and responded?
Yeah, I think he understands. I mean, I think we talked at length before he came here about our vision and our plan for him, and it was never going to be a case that he was going to step in and play every minute of every game. Coming to a new league, being young and learning everything that he needs to learn about the league and his teammates, and also respecting the players that did so well for us at the back end of last season as well. I think you have to earn your place and fight for your place and show that you're better than the other players. In saying that, I've been very pleased with how he's adapted, developed. I'm really excited about what he's going to become for us in the future.
And finally, this next stage of the season before you break for the World Cup, you've got 8 Premier League matches. How critical is it going to be for you when it comes to trying to get the team and the club where you'd like to be?
It's a key spell for us. I think the first 7 games have been very, very positive in lots of aspects of the play, maybe not in terms of the point delivery and the amount of games that we've won. So we have to be very mindful of that. We obviously want to win. We're desperate to win. We're desperate to achieve great things. But we have to be careful we don't overreact to the fact that we haven't maybe won the games that we wanted to do and not veer off track from what is a lot of positives. But ultimately we know what we're going to be judged on, and we have to turn those draws into wins.
Thanks very much.
Morning, Eddie. You spoke there quite a lot about the injury situation and going through all the individual players. How difficult has it been to sort of manage as a whole these last few weeks so early in the season?
Yeah, I've got to say, when most people say over the international break you have a nice relaxing couple of weeks, it's been anything but for me. It was a very difficult early part of the international break, because you're always concerned when your players go away. You always want them to come back in good health and having enjoyed playing for their country in physically good condition, and it was disruptive. But it's over now, it's done, and we pick up. But there's no excuses from me about anything that's happened. We have to have the group that we have, and I'm confident with the players that we have that we can attack these 8 games between now and the World Cup. And certainly we need to try and get everybody fit. We're in the process of trying to do that. When we do, we've got a great squad.
Some interesting comments during the week from Gareth Southgate, who said that Kieran Trippier is ahead of someone like Trent Alexander in terms of how he's playing at the moment. How pleased are you with the way Trippier has started the season, and the fact that he's kind of still high in the pecking order at England given the competition?
Yeah, I mean, the competition in that position, as you say, is very, very fierce. But I think Kieran's been excellent, not just this season, but going back into last season. Certainly played a huge part in us staying in the division. He's just an excellent professional to have around the group. His leadership skills, he's a role model for the younger players, the way he trains and applies himself every day. And I'm sure Gareth sees that when he's with England. He's a really positive personality, and I'm sure Gareth will lean on him in that respect in terms of using his experience to help the group. And
how much of a boost was it to see Nick Pope given the gloves for England over the international break? And I suppose it bodes well for you guys here at Newcastle to see him in that position. Yeah,
fitting reward for me for an excellent start to the season with us. I think he's been excellent in every respect. In terms of his shot stopping, patrolling of his penalty box, distribution have been at the highest level for me. So I think it was fitting reward for that great start.
And just looking at your new signing this morning, obviously he doesn't join for a while, but is that kind of with an eye, you've already said it's an eye to the future, but in terms of the club and what they're doing financially, is it a kind of not a way around financial fair play, but it kind of help with the situation? You can bring in young players like this that come in for the future.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something we need to do, both in terms of recruiting and buying young talent, but also developing young talent in our academy and our centre of excellence. That will save us a lot of money if you can bring good players in. Elliot Anderson being an example, who now is in our squad and filling a very important role within that squad. That saves us a huge transfer fee on a player. So that's very much what we want to do. But obviously the players need to be good enough. Now we're at the start of that process. That may take time for them to filter into our squad, but certainly something we want to do.
What is he like as a player?
He's very sharp, agile, really good agility, quick, good finisher. So I think he's got a lot of very positive ingredients now. That's going to need to be nurtured and developed in the next couple of years to get him to the required level for the Premier League.
Thank you.
Well, Neddy, just on Garang, how fierce was the competition to sign such a highly rated kid? And have you managed to have a good conversation with him yet?
Yeah, met him for the first time in person yesterday, and that was a really good conversation. Very confident, independent lad who's got high motivation. You can see that internally. I think he had offers. He had various options. I think playing well against Barcelona recently certainly elevated his status and elevated potential people that wanted to recruit him. But thankfully we were able to win the race to sign him, and we're very pleased to do so.
Just over the international break, was it getting to a point where you were a bit scared to look at your phone, bearing in mind what was happening?
Certainly when the doctor was calling me, I didn't want to take his calls anymore. But that's why I say it was a stressful period for 3-4 days, but thankfully maybe not as bad as it first appeared.
I suppose, though, looking at the positives, one of them is Callum Wilson, that we're expecting to see back. Are we expecting to see him back tomorrow? And if that's the case, we've talked about his hunger before. Where do you think that comes from? Does it come from a point to prove against other people, or a point to prove for himself?
I think it's very internal. I'd say it's inbuilt in him, and now where that's come from, childhood experiences, early football experiences, I don't know, but it's inbuilt. It's that drive, that determination. I see it every day. I can't quite speak for him in that in-depth level. That's for him to do, but I know when he takes the pitch, training pitch, match day pitch, he's very driven to give his best, not just for himself but for the team.
Obviously, we know that Bruno has settled in very, very well into Newcastle life, but we saw him beating Sunderland on FIFA the other day on social media. How easy is it for you as a manager, though, on a serious point, to see a player immerse themselves in the culture of a city like Bruno quite clearly has done in his 6-8 months here?
Yeah, I've got no comment on that. I know nothing about what you're discussing there. I think for me with Bruno, I think he's a very special person first and foremost. He's got really amazing qualities with his interactions with me and with his teammates, and also then that extends to the supporters. He's got this magical quality about him. He's invested in everything. Every relationship to him is important. His relationship with the supporters, I think, has been important from day one for him, and I think by immersing himself in, firstly, the team. So you can see from his early performances, he's desperate to win. He's got his own individual motives to be the best that he can be. But I think the supporters have really responded to seeing that bond with the city and with the team, and long may that continue for me.
Just on the performance, it's the longest run without a win under you since you arrived here at Newcastle. I suppose it's a new situation, it's a new challenge for the team. What are you kind of hoping that they learn from this situation that they're in right now?
To know how precious winning is and never take it for granted. I say that every time we win. That feeling you get, the elation you get, you should never take that for granted. It's something that is very, very difficult to win a Premier League game. The standard is so high. The teams you're competing against are very good. And you have to get a lot of things right to win a football match. So when you don't win for a while, you miss that feeling. We're in that moment where we're missing that feeling while acknowledging the fact that it's certainly not doom and gloom or any negativity internally from us, but we have a drive where we need to win. We're very aware of that, and we attack these games in the right way now.
And just finally from me, why have Fulham adapted so well, do you think, to the Premier League on the return?
A number of reasons. I think, firstly, looking at their centre-forward, Mitrovic last year had an incredible season. But he's carried that form into this, not just for his club, but for his country. And I think if you have a striker in that form, with the potency that he has at the moment, that's a really good foundation for success. Then off the back of that, I think they've got very good structure, a really good way of playing. I think Marco's done a very, very good job with his team. It's going to be a difficult game for us, but one we know that if we get everything right ourselves, we can win.
Thanks, Eddie. Best of luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Hi, Eddie. You talked about Mitrovic there, a player we know well up here. Are you having to work quite hard on, how to contain him? He's very difficult to play against.
Yeah, he is. He's got very good strengths, obvious strengths. We have worked on, as we would with every opposition, details for our, not just our defenders, but for our team to try and stop him and stop the supply to him. You have your plans for every game. As I say, sometimes they work better than others, but we'll be very well prepared and hope we can give a good account of ourselves.
We talked a bit last time about, going into certainly the Bournemouth game with a bit of frustration, just not quite getting those wins. I guess, are you taking that into the game? I bet you and the lads are just desperate to get back on the pitch to get 3 points. Yeah,
I think when you look at it, one game in a month really for us has been frustration because we want to play. We want to get out there and achieve, and as you say, win games. So yeah, it's been a long wait, and it's been a long wait with quite a bitty period in terms of our training with lots of players away and various things. So it's nice to get the main group back together. It's nice to have this game to focus on, and we're looking forward to it.
And just a word about the fans, who many are going to have quite a difficult trip to London with issues with the trains, we have cost of living and everything else. But I guess you've got nothing but praise for those fans who are going to make that journey. Yeah,
the away support we've had has been incredible. I'm always amazed by the numbers that we take, and as you say, with that comes the travel, the time, the money, the sacrifice to support their team. It's never taken for granted by us as staff and the players. We acknowledge, and that's why we want to, at the end of every game, acknowledge the support and thank the people for coming, because we know, especially at this moment in time with what's happening around the country, it's very difficult.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Hi, Eddie.
Hi.
You were at the Foundation Awards this week with some of the players, some of the women's players, the co-owners were there as well, and obviously when you see the work the Foundation's doing, did it strengthen the idea that I know everyone at the club is keen on, of everyone pulling in the same direction and everything being joined up? Yeah,
I thought it was a great night. Now, I think this is my first time at the awards, at the evening. I thought it was a really well organised, night. I thought very, very powerful messages from the winners of the awards. And I think it just highlighted to me how important the foundation is and what great work goes on in the community. I thought it was a brilliant thing to see. Some of our players came as well, and I thought they spoke really well on stage. And it brought the feeling of why the football club is so important, even more relevant in my mind.
Thank you, broadcasters. Guys, Chris.
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
Just to clarify, is Callum Wilson fit enough to start, and if so, how much of a boost is that?
Callum Wilson has trained. He's trained for, I'd say, around 10 days with us now. So, he's in a good place. Every time he comes back from a injury, I'd say he does the work, doesn't cut corners. So he's really put a real long body of work in with the sports science team and then training with us. So he's looked good.
And in terms of having to adapt to play without him over the last few weeks, having him back, would that be a boost to the rest of the players who have that sort of focal point up front?
That'd be a huge boost for the players to have Callum in the group with his positive energy as well and his laughter that he brings. So he's a big player for us, no doubt about that. And with Alex picking up his injury as well, it was perfect timing for us.
Craig.
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
Just a couple of questions, different subjects. First of all, with regards to the injuries, I know a couple occurred on national duty, but is it something you're looking into, especially the nature of them being fairly similar, a lot of muscle, hamstring, sort of thigh injuries? I know previous managers here, Craven Cottage, took the players and trained down at the academy to try and find a solution, albeit 15, 20 years ago. Is it something that you're investigating? Is the concern the recurring nature?
I think if you break them down, Craig, like we obviously do, go into real detail, you're looking for patterns and themes. We're working through that at the moment, really. But there's no real... We had a little spate of hamstring injuries. This was probably 3-4 weeks ago. But since then, there's been different things. It's not been one consistent theme that you'd look at. Well, that's a huge issue. Something we're always on top of in terms of our medical team, sports science team, ourselves as coaches, to try and find a pattern to it. I think sometimes the schedule, the training, everything that goes into preparing for a Premier League game, you are pushing your players' bodies, and at moments players will break down. That's just the nature of the game and the business we're in. We obviously want to control that and have as many fit players as possible.
And on Nick Pope as well, obviously there was a lot of unfair headlines perhaps in the light of the game against Germany. How has he returned? Have you spoken to him about that, and what did you think of his performance in that game?
I think, I spoke with Nick, as I do all the players returning from international duty. He's in a good place. I think he's aware of how special those games are for him in his career, and from where he's come from to experience those moments is brilliant. But he's earned the right to get to the position in his career that he's at. Where we speak about all sorts of things. I was very, very proud of him representing his country on behalf of Newcastle.
Okay. Jordan?
Just on the Garan situation, his work permit is, in terms of January, you're looking to loan him out, or is there a way you can potentially have him available for January in terms of your plans?
I'd say at the moment the plan would probably be, and these things can change, but he would go on a loan spell from January. Where that is at the moment, I've got no idea. We're working through various options, but things can change regarding to his involvement in the World Cup if he's selected. So there's lots of moving parts to that one as well.
Matt?
You said a few weeks ago Anderson was pushing for his first Premier League start. How close is he to that start, and is he in your thinking for the Fulham game?
Yeah, he's in my thinking for sure. I mean, I think you look back to his last appearance was Crystal Palace, I think, and he did very well for 20-25 minutes, really made an impact in that game. I think as he did against Wolves when he came on late in the game. So I'm looking for him, whether he starts, whether he comes on the pitch, to make a positive contribution. If he continues to do that, his first start is not far away.
Danny?
Eddie, just going back to Nick Pope, goalkeepers, when they make a mistake or have a difficult moment, inevitably it's a disaster. Is it a different mindset as a goalkeeper to cope with that sort of thing? And how strong have you seen Nick mentally as you've got to know him? How have you seen that mental strength in him?
I think it's a very difficult position to play in. I think I remember playing in goal a few times as a 10-year-old, and I made a couple of mistakes, and that was me out. I didn't want to do it anymore. So I think you need, I think you need to love goalkeeping, and then you need to be able to deal with mistakes. It's part of the job when you're in that position. I'd say from Nick, he's a very calm, level-headed guy. He's incredibly focused. So I've got no problem with him returning. I know he'll carry on where he left off for us. So yeah, I think it's probably a shield that you build up through many years playing in goal.
Okay, Kieran?
Anyway, it's only games coming up. Have you had to look at a way of maybe keeping Callum fit going forward, or has there been a change of plan in how you've approached that?
I'm not sure there is a magic formula. We, of course, with all our players, our main aim is to get, as I said earlier to Craig, get as many people fit and available for as many games as we can. With Callum, he's an important player, so resting him and managing his minutes, that's not always the best thing for a player. Sometimes players need rhythm and they need to get used to playing 90 minutes consecutively to build their resilience. So it's a really delicate balance, and sometimes it's impossible to know what the correct answer is. Now, sometimes you just play the game, don't think too much. And then back the players. As I say, resilience for me. Callum played a lot of games in busy schedules and did very well. So there's no special plans at the moment.
I suppose frustrating for you just when he's fit, Alexander Isak picks up the injury. Have you maybe got an idea in your head how maybe they could work together? Have you thought about that yet, given that they've not trained together yet, I suppose? Yeah,
they've not trained together. That's something I'll leave for another day. At the moment, it's the focus on finding the best team to beat Fulham. Certainly as players come back and the group changes, then there's always other solutions and potential things to look at.
Lee?
Just on some of the fringe players like Manquillo, Lewis and Dummett, just what would your advice to them be to get back in the team? Is it all about training, because you haven't got a load of cup games to give them the opportunity, you've just got the one next 2 months time, so what's the advice for them?
Train well, show everything. People say, I haven't had a game to show you what I'm capable of, but the reality is they have a window every day with me to show me how good they are in training, and I'll always try and pick what I believe is the best team to win the game. So the onus is very much on them to fight in a good way to prove that they are better than the player playing in their position. They're players that you've discussed that have all had different backgrounds and different stories to get to this point, but they're players that I all like, and I think they're capable of playing really well in our team. So it's a long season, a lot of games, they will be needed, and they're very valued by me.
And the stop-start nature this season, we've already experienced it. Do you think it's going to take until sort of after the new year for the league table to settle down? And at the minute we're probably not looking at the real deal, if you like.
Certainly, I think it's early stages of the season. I think the league is still forming, but it will start to take shape very quickly, and we want to be in a position where we are where we want to be. And that's where these early games in the season really do define potentially how your season could end up. So we know the importance of these matches. There's no part of us that's thinking any different. It's everything that we have to try and win this game at the weekend. That's where our energy needs to be.
Okay. Oscar?
Were you watching the Germany game, Eddie? And did you feel for Nick when that third goal went in?
Yes, I was watching the game. I always try to watch as many games as I can with my players involved to check how they're doing and check they're okay. So I thought it was a really good game, actually. I thought the second half opened up to be a really good spectacle, and it was probably a classic England-Germany game. But of course, as I said, I was proud of Nick, and only those emotions from me to him.
Martin?
How important is the academy to you, Eddie, and is the appeal of the club much greater now?
Well, academies, for me, is a hugely important part of the football club. It's something that we are and will continue to invest not just money into, but time and energy to try and create footballers for tomorrow that are from the local area. For me, that's a hugely important part of what we need to deliver here. Now, to do that takes as I say, a lot of planning, a lot of organisation, a lot of work from a lot of individuals to try and bring those players through. But it's something that for me is a necessity, and I know the board and everyone connected with the club feel the same.
And is there a more international appeal now in light of the club having new owners over the last 12 months?
I think possibly there will be, but I think for me, our at the core of it needs to be the local people from the local area. I think that needs to be the core of what we do. That we need to recruit the best players from this area, and this is historically, and even from my short time here, the passion and enthusiasm here of young people towards the game is so high that there's no reason why we shouldn't be developing Premier League players from here. And then if we can add some quality individuals from wherever they come from in the world, then all the better.
Okay. Simon?
There's been a lot of debate about Gareth Southgate's future after the World Cup. I know there's not a vacancy at the minute, but in the future, at any point, would you ever be interested in being England manager?
Well, what I say to that is I think Gareth's done an incredible job. I really do. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I've been lucky enough to go in and see him work and spend time with him. I've got a lot of time for him and for Steve Holland and his team there. They've been amazing for England. And I think you have to remember where England was when he took over and what he's done for the country. I'd never say never. I never say no. It's not something that I'd ever be interested in, but certainly not in the short term. It's not on my radar at all. It's all Newcastle and investing in trying to make this team the best I can.
Yeah, you might be a bit young for it at the minute. I mean,
well, I've always said I love the day-to-day coaching. I love being with my players on the training ground. And international football, you get that taken away for long periods. And at this moment in my life, that's not something I want to do.